fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got really outside of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson! Anderson's up to
Oh my god! Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, there we go!
Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?
Sometimes you just got to lick the stamp and send it.
I don't know what happened on there. I just plucked her in first, gave some gen. Oh, fuck yeah.
You are racing with other people. And if you no longer go for a cat that exists, you're no longer a racing driver.
We go green for 40 minutes of racing around Monza.
Oh, defense by Ethan Grigol, just getting so punchy.
And a brilliant getaway already from Josh Rogers.
Two pro drivers going at it here between Dylan O'Keefe and Nick Foster.
Stanaway's demoted to third. Webster wins week 9 here at Sebring through the final corner. That's a huge slide for Cooper Murray. Just trying to barge their way through, and that's whoa. That's a merry-go-round for Nick Burkett. Campbell, Paolo Gaon, and Ferraris behind. Glenn Wood actually was flipped into the barriers. One of the most exciting pirouettes I've seen in quite some time. That's Van Gisbergen, and his day is done. Tell you what, if Calvin wins this race, I wouldn't be surprised. He's all four wheels up the racetrack. He just saves it on the apex.
Contact almost made, side by side through the elevation change, and Scotty McLaughlin has the move done, but he got over the crest. And
What a send!
Dylan O'Keefe sends it up the inside, can't do anything with it.
Shane Van Gisbergen already on the attack.
It begins and sending has begun.
And it's going to be a drag race to the line. Tuesday night is rapidly becoming a night to lick the stamp. Send it.
Oh, I forgot I was helping commentate here. I was just sitting back in my jocks and
Hello and welcome to SimSpeed TV for week 5 of season 2 of Just Send It. We're out in the TCR cars tonight at Imola. Alongside me tonight I have for the first time David Sanford. Mate, how's it going?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me on tonight, mate. It was a bit of a surprise to get a message. I was considering driving it, but you know, I couldn't pass up the opportunity of commentating with you tonight.
Awesome, mate. We head out to Imola tonight, as I mentioned. We must give a massive, massive shout out to our series sponsors in this series, JAC Technology, along with Melbourne Performance Centre, SimWorks, Digital Marketing Tribe, and Erebus Motorsport, which is going to be really, really cool. We've got a couple cool prizes on offer as well tonight, Sanford, both for the viewers and the drivers. Any viewer across the broadcast who shares and likes the broadcast on Facebook will get a 2-hour session down at Motum Simulation in Melbourne. And any driver in the top 10 who hasn't sent it a link is eligible rather to potentially get a ride in a R8 LMS GT3 car, which is pretty sick, isn't it?
It's pretty exciting. So I know the guys will be going that little bit harder just for those the selected 10, I think. That'll be announced sometime next week. So and obviously for the viewers tonight, it's going to be pretty cool. So one of you guys that'll share it and all that are in for a pretty good show.
That's it. And let's talk a little bit about Just Send It. We've got a bit of a pre-qual situation that's already happened prior to this broadcast. So the best lot of guys are in the server tonight, and now they're going to have, in a couple minutes time, a second qualifying session, which is going to set the grid, and then we're lined up for a 37-minute race around Imola.
Yeah, so I've been in one of these before. Unfortunately, I've only done one race, but it's like there's a whole element of like, oh no, you've got to absolutely send it for tops. But it was Maz's at Catalonia, sorry, and you do really send it, and you go for the draft just to get in that top spot because you want to race with these, you know, there's pro drivers in here and there's World Championship drivers such as Josh Rogers and Josh W Anderson and stuff like that. And then when you get in there, you're like, oh, now I've got to send it again for another, 10 minutes after practice. So it'll be good to see how the grid lines up.
Yeah, you mentioned a couple of those quite quick sim races that we got in here. In addition to those guys, you've got the likes of Dane Warren as well, quite a quick dude, as well as Jackson Suslan Harlow, and as you say, Josh Anderson, Josh Rogers, and a couple others in this server here tonight. I think Jake Maloney, Cooper Webster, Ethan Warren as well. So some really, really quick dudes. But we've also got some not only quick dudes in the sim, but also some fairly good real life talent in here tonight as well. Sanford, we've got Justin Rugia has made an appearance. He's a bit of a regular in this series, Aussie Racing Car Series champion this season, as well as Super 2 driver, as well as Dylan O'Keefe actually, who actually raced these cars in the debut TCR Australia Series this season just gone.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting for the regular Joes that sort of come on sim racing and they get to drive in the series. What's really cool and what's really made the series take off is they get to drive with those pro drivers that they see on television, or they even line up for the autographs. Like we've had Max Verstappen and Lando Norris and stuff on here before, and that's awesome for them. So that's why they turn up. Just why wouldn't you want to race with some of the world's best?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Even guys, I've been fortunate enough to race likes of Aaron Borg, who I think won the Toyota 86 Racing Series this season, and George Gutierrez, who also raced in that series. So we got a lot of national competitors, but qualifying has begun. And look at those Audi TCR cars come streaming out of the pit lane. I think we've actually had a bit of an accident at the end of the pit lane, but these tyres do take a little bit of time to come on, Sanford. So do you reckon it's going to be the first lap that's the fast lap?
Nah, it'll be second or third, and I've not driven these cars all that much. You can even see them now; they're weaving down the straights. But I've not driven these cars too much. But I just remember from experience that it takes maybe 2 or 3 laps for them to really come on. So you'll probably see these guys circulate for a little bit, except for those guys that just send it a little bit too seriously and start sending it in qualifying. Like we see people currently cutting their corners. Justin Rugia there. So until that time, we're probably just going to see circulation. We're just going to see pretty off the pace lap times until those front tyres, especially because these cars are front wheel drive, warm up.
Yeah, that's it. And leading the train at the moment is actually a mutual friend of ours, Sanford, is Joshua W. Anderson, who's had a big slide coming down into the double rights at the bottom of the hill. He's going to get rounded up by Cooper Webster. Why don't we take a ride on board with Josh, actually. He was quite fast in practice, P3. I think Blake Neck was the fastest of the lot. So why don't we give the viewers a bit of an experience of what it's like to drive a TCR car around this track on board with Ando. So as we head down the hill now towards the last 2 corners, the thing that Sanford mentioned before, you're battling to get tyre temperature into this thing in the early parts of qualifying. So when it commences the lap now, coming off the last corner, it's going to be important in these front-wheel drive cars to get a good run. You've got to try and get on the throttle early, but at the same time, getting on the throttle too early will give you that torque steer and you'll end up wide.
Yeah, so something that I also, as you just said, that I noticed, like you've really got to drag the brake into mid-corner, and that sort of helps point the corner towards exit. It's almost like the effect that the new V8 supercar has. So we'll see Joshua Anderson here shutting down for what we can call pretty much turn 1, and he will point it straight at the apex and then come through 2, 3, and 4 as we see. And it's more of a car that you have to come in and point it and then take that straight exit and just get the traction, rather than trying to drive it in on the rears and turning with your rear end like you do in the GT3, the GTE, and the old V8.
Yeah, that's it. I think coming out of the Villeneuve chicane there, I think he's actually torque steered the car wide, so that's going to be that lap pretty much over and done with. The lap behind him, though, from his teammate, however, Jackson Suslan Harlow, seems to be quite good. Jackson's had some success in this series in the past. He's pretty much a regular here. That Altus livery looking really good on that TCR car. What part of the track do you think would probably be the most challenging for these cars, Sanford?
I'm kind of trying to think. I actually think coming down down the hill and doing that little double left-hander. I know in most cars it's quite the final two corners of the track. In most cars it's quite difficult to actually just pull that car around because you want to get on the power early in that last corner, but you can't. Like there's only a small margin of error, and that AstroTurf on the exit of the last turn, it's grippy, but it's not fully there. So especially for these cars, they're front wheel drive, they want to push anyway, and then you're trying to put them on some AstroTurf. It'll be interesting all day to see how some people go. So
Yeah, so Jackson just curving through that bit of the track that we mentioned just there. Also, these cars don't have huge power. They're pretty gutsy for a four-cylinder turbo, but they're not big power. So he's going to be benefiting a little bit from the draft from his teammate up ahead. Let's see what that first lap through is for Jackson. He's gone provisional P1 on a 54.3. Let's see how the rest of the field comes through. Cooper Webster on a 54.7, and then it's a big gap back to Lachlan Minif, but it looks like low to mid 54 seems to be about the pace.
yeah, and this is the highest up Thomas McMillan has been in a qualifying since 2017 Bathurst. I don't know if you've heard that story, but you'd have to watch the stream back. Have you heard about what happened at the last corner, Jake? I'm not sure.
Oh, I don't want to roast people too hard, but I do remember a slight issue in the shootout that week. It was quite fun to watch, but I don't think McMillan will stay there because it looks like we've only seen a couple of guys really do indicative laps. That is a massive margin between Cooper and Lachlan. That's a good second and a half there. So I would think that there's some guys like Anderson, for example, who potentially haven't got a lap together. Obviously, Cooper's done some real life racing, but I'd say our first big, I guess, pro is probably Dylan O'Keefe, sitting in P4 at the moment. Obviously was pretty decent in these cars. I think he snagged a win or two in the TCR Australia Series, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, Dylan O'Keefe, obviously some viewers will know that pay attention to TCR Australia. He is a real-life driver of TCR, so he's got a little bit of experience. Obviously, he might be able to transfer that over to iRacing, but when you see guys like Jackson Susan-Harlow, he's a very, very competitive driver, and we could be watching him on the world stage one day, I think. So I think he's going to be a hard man to beat tonight, unless we see some other guys like Josh Rogers or something pull up.
Yeah, JSH's second lap through looks pretty good. His teammate Ando jumped straight out of the way for him. I reckon Jackson's probably going to improve his lap time quite a bit here. Quick topic on weather conditions tonight. We've got a 35-degree track, a ridiculously hot ambient temp. So these cars won't be making a huge amount of power, but it doesn't actually look like Jackson's second lap's counted.
Yeah, so for the viewers that aren't really up to pace with that, the hotter the ambient temperature is in iRacing, quote unquote, the slower the cars are going to go in a straight line, or because you can't produce more power with hotter air. So when the ambient temperature rather is colder, the cars are faster around the track. Even though the track might be 22 degrees, if you've got a higher ambient than a 19, something like that, then you are actually going to go slower. So that's something always to keep an eye on when you're doing laps.
Another guy we got our eyes on right now is Duvish and Padiachi. That's a quite well-known name if you've ever watched Porsche Carrera Cup Australia. So another one of our pro guys out there tonight. I'm not sure how he's gone in the previous weeks. I think he's relatively new to iRacing, so we're seeing him come down towards to finish a lap now. Let's see what kind of number we can see from Zubin. It looks like it's going to be a 158.7, which isn't too bad. That's actually going to land him sort of in the top 25, so not all the way at the back. Not bad for a guy who's just got into it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Everyone starts somewhere, even the pro guys, and obviously he's done an okay time. Now we're on screen with Brenton Hobson, our E-Series driver from Synergy Sim Racing. He's done an alright time with a 155.432. Is sitting in the... You wouldn't read about it. He's P6. You cannot get away from that number, Brenton. So hopefully he stays there and he just continues the voodoo per se.
Yeah, and we've actually seen a bit of our boy Justin Rugia's jumped up a little bit now. He's now got the crown for our number one pro, we'll say. But pretty much we talk about them being pros, but at the same time we should mention that pretty much everyone in front of him races real life cars or karts in some way, shape or form as well. So it is really interesting that this series is breeding so many real life drivers, and we've now seen the Altus pair of Altus triple. All in one lap. We've seen Josh Anderson, Ethan Warren, and Dane Warren all one after the other go P1, 2, and 3. How sick's that?
That was pretty good. So Ethan and Dane were actually training along with each other on that back straight, and it seems that maybe they're going to swap sides now, because as you saw coming into turn one just before, Ethan's just swapped back with Dane and he's tucked in behind. But that's a 1-2-3 lockout. Jackson's gone down to 5th, but that's still a really competitive time. But Dane he's 6/10 on the field. Like, that's massive.
Yeah, that's it. He's pulled quite a big number out there. It's, as we should mention for those who don't know, Dane and Ethan are both teammates and brothers, so there's quite a rivalry there. So I don't think Ethan will like getting slapped by 6/10 of a second by his brother. So he'll be out to have another crack with some slipstream maybe. But it looks like it's pretty much going to be P1 for Dane Warren with only a minute left in qualifying.
Yeah, that's a pretty good lap, and you're exactly right. These guys like to go toe to toe. If anyone's ever been in a session with them, they'll just continually hot lap and everything like that, and try and get the better of each other. And we can see tonight it's going to be exactly the same. So it'll be interesting with how how the series plays. With it is just send it, so everyone's just going to just send it, and yellow flags and everything like that. So it's not over.
Another guy we got our eyes on at the moment is another real-life driver who's fairly new to iRacing, is Matt Charter, known as one of the guys who races in Super 2, bit of a family-run sort of operation down there. Is pretty much a veteran when it comes to that series. Been running around there for a long time. Unfortunately, hasn't had a huge amount of success, but for someone who's running off his own business, he's doing a bloody good job.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And we can see Cooper Webster's just pipped Ethan B. Warren for P2. So and Jackson Susan Harlow, even as I'm saying that, Jackson puts in a 53.910 and Cooper with a 154.107 to go 2 and 3. So they've split up that Altus group. But honestly, it's looking like a really tight field as qualifying winds.
Yeah, that's it. And as I say, although Imola isn't much of a sort of draft track, these cars don't have big power, and they've got a fair amount of aero for the amount of power they've got. So it's definitely going to be a bit of a draft race. That should hold these guys together. We've got 37 minutes to race as well, so I don't think these guys are going to be too patient when it comes to their racecraft. But rounding out the last few minutes of the session, we've got our eyes on Brenton Hobson for Synergy Sim Racing at the moment. He might be able to pull something out of the bag in the last lap. Currently sitting P12. I think he'd like to knock off the next few in front of him. Just a couple tenths here, I think, will land him sort of P9. So I think that's what he's going for as he heads into the last two.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So Brenton Hobson comes around the last corner, and someone's quite in tow with him. I didn't quite see that, but that's all right. We'll be able to see in a few seconds what Brenton does. He's a bit of a veteran in iRacing, so let's see. Oh,
didn't count. Must have won.
Nothing. Yeah, I was waiting patiently for it. I was excited, but that's all right.
I'm not sure how many other drivers we have still out there doing laps. It is a reasonably long lap in these TCR cars. Imola not known as a hugely long track, but it's 4.91 Ks. And as I say, these TCR cars don't have huge top end speed. So it is quite a long lap, but it looks like the Altus guys are having a crack again. And they've seemingly brought themselves undone coming into the last corner as Ando sends it a little bit too early. But Dane Warren comes to finish his lap. I'm not sure if we're going to see an improvement from him. However, it does look like we have one of the other Synergy Sim Racing guys, Glenn Postlethwaite, there as well, who's quite a fair way up the front as well. He is also not going to improve his time. So I think that's our grid pretty much set.
Yep, as qualifying comes to a close, pretty much everyone's over the line now. I think oh, here's one more, Aaron Borg, our 86 driver. He comes on the rears a little bit into the second to last corner, coming around the end. This will probably be our last drive before we wrap up shop.
Yeah, so Aaron's sitting P23 at the moment. He won't be liking that. He'll want to go even quicker. So he's coming towards the line, seeing if he can get a little bit more out of it. 55.6, which is actually going to land him a few spots further up. I think that's actually landed. So the lap was good, but it seems like he's got a 1x and blown the lap. So
yeah,
I think we'll probably run through our grid positions now, because we've got a massive field tonight of, I think, 59 cars. 58 rather. So grid on screen, P1, Dane Warren and his teammate Jackson Susan Harlow for Logitech G Altus Esports. That pair, P1 and 2. Cooper Webster, the ERT car in the Logitech G Altus Esports sandwich with P3. Ethan Warren, P4 with Josh W. Anderson, a Also, should mention Aussie racing car driver up there in P5 with Glenn Postlethwaite for Synergy Sim Racing P6. Blake Neck out there for Geodesic in P7 with Nathan Hearn P8. And then Job Stewart and Justin Ruggier riding out your top 10.
Michael Hammond starts in on the 6th row in P11. Brenton Hobson in P12, unfortunately couldn't get that 6th place. George Gutierrez, Andrew Collins in 13th and 14th. Jacob Knight in 15th. Will Longmore in 16th. Thomas McMillan in 17th. Liam Kaplis in 18th. Ben Snell in 19th. And Jay Hansen in 20th.
I think we'll run through to P30 because otherwise we're going to be short on time. But Mitchell McLeod, a guy who you might catch, he's streaming himself actually. One of the funniest guys to watch out there and a big veteran when it comes to iRacing in P21 for Talk Inc. Ashley Ruskin in 22nd. Aaron Borg, as we mentioned before, in P23 with Nick De Silva in 24th. A lot of privateers in this part of the grid, actually. So Phil Munnelly in P25, Oliver Shannon in P26, with Darren Whittington and Matt Charter 27th and 28th. And then rounding out your 30 as we're about to start gridding up, Will Newell and Glenn Morris.
You're only a few seconds away. Michael Rosenblatt, Jack Widdis, Guy Leach, Harrison Dengate, Dylan O'Keefe, Lachlan Beneath, Jonathan Beekoff, Dubshin Padiachi. We're running out of time.
There's too many, Sanford. There's too many, mate.
We're
37 minutes. We're about to grow green here. The revs are starting to rise for 37 minutes. Starting on those line lockers, front wheel drive, getting the tyre temp in there.
Start. Have they? Dane moved.
So you may have seen a bit of a jump start, but they're away in racing for now. It's a pretty even start off the front. Good start in the back from Glenn Postlethwaite at the back end of the top 5 there. Cooper Webster's going to challenge JSH into turn 1, but it looks like Jackson's going to have him moved. So let's see if we see any carnage in the background.
Nothing. Massive wreck in the background there. So if we can have a bit of a replay of what's going on there, there's a few cars around that are struggling to do the old flick spin with the cold tyres, but that's fine. We'll move forward over to Dane Warren and Jackson. He's already put, a hefty gap on Jackson Susan Harlow as Susan Harlow goes defensive on Cooper Webster, is it?
Yeah, looks like nice little battle here for P2. Josh Anderson's wanting to make the most of it as well by the looks. Ethan Warren didn't have too good of a start. He's dropped back a few spots, but big accident as well as we've come down towards Tosa. Very nice re-entry we're seeing on screen at the moment as well. Not too sure who that is. Oh, Thomas McMillan. What do you expect from McMillan there? But as the leading pack's starting to head down towards the hill, it's on between Postlethwaite and Anderson. These guys aren't going to want to muck around because Dane's getting away.
Yeah, these are two pretty competitive guys at the front of the field, so hopefully they don't fight too much, that Dane just gets that insurmountable, is that how you say it? Insurmountable lead on them. He's already got, 7/10, as you can see on screen, with Cooper Webster also 7/10 behind Jackson, just from Joshua W. Anderson's poking his nose in there down the bottom of the hill. So as we come around the final 2 turns for the end of lap 1, hopefully no one on these cold tyres down that downhill run. It's a pretty weird braking zone, Jake, coming down into there, especially on cold tyres in any car, to judge where you actually need a brake, especially in traffic.
Yeah, you got so much dependence on the front tyres in these cars, especially going downhill like that. You got all the weight on the front with the diff and the motor there, and the front tyres are doing the turning, the braking, and the accelerating. So we're going to see a bit of a fight. Ando going to the outside of Cooper. There's no room given there, and Ando's ran side. Managed to use the front tyre, front wheel drive to actually accelerate out of that, and has then managed to come off in front anyway. But it's also on for our leaders here. Ando's going to have a slowdown. And it looks like Susan Harlow and Dane came together on the exit there.
Yeah, just a little bit. So as you can see, Dane still got a little bit of a gap after that. As Hobbo gives is that Job Stewart of Pursuit Sim Racing a bit of a shunt. So now Job Stewart's been passed around the outside of Justin Ruggier, our Aussie racing car driver, but he can't quite get it done. It's a pretty weird place to pass, especially with the traction zone being on that AstroTurf. It's quite a strange little hook turn, Jake.
Yeah, that's it. The AstroTurf is very slippery here, especially when you're trying to accelerate on it in a front wheel drive. So they're going to head down the hill now. Ruggier is quite a smart driver. He's nice and patient, but can be aggressive and fast when he needs to be. So I'm not counting Ruggier out of getting this move done a little bit later in the lap, but I don't think he's going to be doing anything too silly. It looks like our lead 4 have managed to get away quite nicely. Dane seems to be struggling a little bit relative to his teammate in JSH. JSH looking really quick at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. And this just goes back to where I said earlier in qualifying, when Jackson Susan-Harlow was a really experienced driver, especially in TCR. He drives a lot of TCR. I'd also like to point out one of the front row, or the top 4 people, Ethan B. Warren seems to have fired down the field somewhere. He got a really, really bad start, and unfortunate for him, the Altus driver is now in 16th position as he rounds the final corner in the back of the pit. He's pushing pretty wide there too.
Yeah, we also saw Nick De Silva off at the Variante Alta there. Looks like he'd been turned around in the mid-corner. Quite an interesting livery on Nick De Silva's car. I think that's probably got to be up for livery of the night, I'd just about say.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's something we always like to see, is the strange liveries that everyone likes to put on and just send it. Sometimes we have some meme ones. Obviously, the guys representing teams just have to keep their normal sponsors on, such as Altus or Cooper Webster with Evolution Racing Team, Blake Neck with Geodesics. So those are, and again, those are our top 5. But Joshua W. Anderson has also fallen back, our other Altus driver, to P6 after pushing Jackson Susan-Harlow, or Cooper rather, earlier on.
Now, the one thing we do have to deal with some slightly bigger grids is lap traffic very early, and we're already on lap 3, and it looks like, oh, big slide from Glenn Postlethwaite. Again, one benefit of your front-wheel drive and an all-wheel drive car, Sanford, is if you have a big moment, you can gather it.
Yeah, that's right. With no power in the rear wheels, there's nothing to keep rotating your rear around, so it's pretty easy to collect these tyres. But on these V7 tyre models, if you scorch the tyres early, they're gone later in the stint. So unless Posy plans to pit under the yellow flag, he just needs to minimise those mistakes, needs to minimise the slides, everything like that, especially that one that we just saw, because he's going to run out of puff later.
And it has looked as well like Glenn Postlethwaite, as a result of that, has fallen off that lead pair. So it does look like it's going to be an Altus battle for the lead, as we have a replay of that start. A few of the guys not even making it to Tamburello. Fairly big shunt off the first 100 or so meters. I'm not sure if maybe we saw a car stalled later in the field or something like that, or maybe not stalled, but just didn't get off the line, because we did see quite a large shunt just in the first 100 meters of the race.
Yeah, there's a few jump starts, wasn't there? So it'll be interesting to see what actually happened here. Unless it's just people moving across on each other. We see that in every hosted and official race, everything like that. So
they've gaggled up into a 4-car pack there, and everyone's just plowed their way in.
This is Mosport from Scops last year. I've PTSD from that still. So, oh no, that's a massive shunt. So that's what we like to see, and just send it as or the leader is struggling. There's a car off the track. Dane Warren, he had to get on the brakes a little bit seeing him, but that's right, he passes him pretty smoothly with Jackson Susan-Harlow still in that tow, like I wonder if Jackson Susan-Harlow is just biding his time, waiting to see when Dane's going to make a monumental mistake or something like that.
Yeah, well, we got Cooper about a second back, so I wouldn't count him out, but at the same time, it wouldn't be out of my mind that Jackson's just going to try and sort of put the race in his control at the moment. Dane is driving very aggressively. He's leaving nothing on the table. He went full apex hunting going down the hill just then, but why don't we take a little bit of a look back in the field. We're taking a look at Blake Neck at the moment, challenging the back of Josh Anderson. Blake's one of those dudes who you don't typically see out in the more common stuff like the V8, but tends to race just about everything else, as we've seen Will Longmore head off the track at the Piratella.
Yeah, Will Longmore, one of our regulars here on Just Send It. Oh, look at that shunt actually, as we go back to see why he was off the track.
I think that was a lapped car actually in Aaron Borg that he's come together with there. So I'm not sure if there's, but I don't know if that's maybe a result of something that happened earlier in the race that those two boys are sorting out there. But either way, shame to see those two come together. But we now have a fight on for our lead. Jackson Susan-Harlow is going to have a bit of a crack at Dane Warren, I think, but actually lifts out. So I think we were right earlier in saying that Jackson's just playing the waiting game at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. And as you said before, these cars don't have too much power, so you can imagine like they're not awfully aerodynamic. They do provide some assistance with some sneaky little flaps on the bumpers and all that. So, but it's more of a sit behind the brick in front of you and, you know, do your best down the straights. And Jackson's a good enough driver to stick behind Dane through the corner sections. And, you know, who knows, maybe he is just waiting for that last lap pounce.
That's it. Tell you what, who isn't waiting is Ethan Warren. We mentioned earlier, and we just caught the bit of a battle into turn one between Ethan, Jacob Knight, and Ben Snell. Ethan's going to have a run around the outside of Jacob Knight here, throws it in really deep into Tosa, but actually manages to get the move done around the outside. Beautiful move from Ethan.
Yeah, that was an excellent move. He just, it was quite wonderful, wasn't it? He just came a bit later on the brakes and he realised that his apex was a little bit later and managed to put his whole car in front of him before the apex of the corner. So now he'll be looking to hunt down Ben Snell and get Jacob Knight off his back, because those two have been battling for a few laps now.
Now, I'm not too sure how things worked the last few weeks with Just Send It. There is half a chance that we may see a caution, which may drag the field a little bit closer together. But unfortunately, in these shorter races, it really cuts into your race time, especially at a long track like this and having a caution. So we'll see what happens as the race progresses, but it's not over for Ethan.
Yeah, exactly. He's really starting to hunt down Ben Snell too. So hopefully, you know, I'm not too sure what's going to happen if we have a yellow flag or even the leaders start to have sorry, I just had some company in my room, but that's all right. A few shunts or Cooper Webb's chasing them down, some battling happens, and it brings the field closer together.
Yeah, Cooper's been one of the fastest cars on track the last few laps, but JSH and Dane, they've stepped it up that last lap and actually pulled a couple tenths over him. So Cooper, I think, is going to want to just be staying in the draft, and we've actually seen Ben Snell pop down into pit lane. I don't believe these guys need to do a compulsory pit stop tonight, so I'm a little bit confused why we've seen him down in the lane.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting. I know these guys have some fast repairs and stuff, so unless they've got some monumental damage, as we see Nathan Hearn give some Morse code to our man Justin Rougier there through turn 1 and 2. Yeah, it'll be interesting to know, you know, if you're coming down the lane, if you're going to take tyres or anything like that, because tyre management is so important in TCR, especially with this V7 tyre model and how much the fronts get chewed on the brakes and everything.
This is a hell of a race here between Hearn and Rougier. Hearn does the bit of a bump and run, gets it done. Justin's out now high and dry in the grass, and he's going to get rounded up by Guy Leach and Mitchell McLeod, and maybe even Michael Hammond here as they head up into the Piltella. That's something Justin's not going to like too much. I think the red mist is going to descend for him now.
Yeah, this will be Queensland Raceway all over again, Jake. So Nathan Hearn better watch out coming down the main straight. So as they come down into right out sideways for Guy Leach. Is that Guy Leach? He's got Leachy on his back.
Yep.
Yeah,
Guy Leach is one of the veterans in Australian sim racing. He's been racing for longer than I think we've been broadcasting here at Sim Speed. So yeah, one of the veterans, that's for sure. It's awesome to see him out in his classic Valentino Rossi themed liveries.
Yeah, he loves that livery. He's joined V8 Sleuth Motorsports with, I think it's Henry King runs that team as a whole. It's sort of a big umbrella. So, a new leader as Jackson Susan Harlow passes Dane coming into turn 1. Not even in the braking zone, as Cooper Webster sets the fastest lap of the race as he mows these guys down. So he's not even in the draft of these two, and he's just set the fastest lap of the race, and he's pinned it down to 0.734 now. So he's going to be hot on the heels of Dane and Jackson.
And we've seen Mitchell McLeod come in as well. I don't know, maybe I've got it wrong. Maybe these guys do need to make a pit stop at some point in this race. I'm a little confused why we're seeing so many guys come down into the lane. But yeah, Cooper Webster really showing what the V7 tyre's like when you're able to do a fastest lap of the race this far into the race. And we've seen Nathan Hearn seems to have gone around coming into turn 1. We're going to catch a replay. It looks like two guys that were just too deep, and then he spun it towards the inside and somehow made the fence and then reversed back onto the track really weirdly. I'm not sure if maybe a stuck throttle or something there has been going on.
That was nearly the most dangerous rejoin of all time. But no, it's all safe, and Justin Rougier gets a spot back regardless on Nathan Hearn as he goes back to the pits. So that's fine. Justin Rougier moving into 15th place. We've got Michael Hammond and Oliver Shannon now battling with the Michael Hammond in that Subaru livery.
Yeah, we got a bit of a one that's a bit interesting, I think, is Ethan Warren. So we mentioned earlier in the race how he got knocked down quite a bit. He has race-leading pace at the moment. He did a 54.0 last time by, and I think he's actually already rounded up Brenton Hobson, and he's going to round up Andrew Collins quite quick. So he's going to be a P7 or P6 driver quite quickly.
Yeah, it won't be long until we can probably keep an eye on the standings board. Ethan Warren, once he does get to Andrew, and if he does get past, how fast he'll catch Blake Nick. I mean, Blake Nick's
quite a fight. Sorry, Sanford. We got Anderson and Pozzi coming up here into turn one. Anderson had that car all the way up on the grass to get that move done. That was an awesome move. I wouldn't mind half seeing a replay of that. He had the car way up on the grass because Pozzi squeezed him coming into turn one. That was really, really cool.
Yeah, that was a pretty big send from Joshua W. Anderson, right up on the grass. Glenn Pozzi giving him a bit of a squeeze. Josh gives it straight back to him though, and he just absolutely sends it, hops over the curb, big time, see you later. That's a pretty good pass by our oldest man, Joshua W. Anderson.
So that promotes Ando up to P4. Cooper Webster, we've been mentioning how fast he's been the last few laps. Dane Warren's last lap didn't count, so I'm unsure if maybe he might have had a slowdown or maybe some internet dramas or something like that. But Webster has closed that gap again, I believe, really, really quick. I think this is going to soon turn into a three-way battle.
Yeah, that's right. Cooper seems to be matching these two leaders, and he's not even in the draft or anything, so he doesn't have that benefit of grabbing that 2 or 3 tenths down the main straight. As we see Justin Rougier on screen, what has he done here? Oh no!
Oh, it looks like
he's just taken a shunt.
Surely that wasn't enough to end his race. There must have been something else happen as he's heading down into Villeneuve on the replay here for that kind of incident to occur. I'm not too sure what's happened to Ruggs there. Oh, it looks like a net or computer failure of some description. That's pretty much going to be race done for him. That sucks,
Yeah,
and we're going to see Dane Warren pop into the...
Yeah, Dane Warren's coming down the lane, so I think you're right. I think the guys do need to pit for fuel, maybe for tyres. Well, I mean, why would they need to pit for tyres? But maybe they need to pit for fuel. Maybe there's a critical lap that's going on with those guys that have been, well, I know it's time certain, but critical lap with those guys pitting earlier on. So it'll be interesting to see what happens to Dane Warren now. He'll be buried right down the field where he doesn't need to be unless these leaders pit and try and, cover him off or something like that.
I'm not too sure. Dane did some weird stuff driving down the pit lane. He had the thing on the line like a handbrake, like burning the car up Summernat spec down the pit lane. So I'm not too sure if maybe Dane's had a problem and that's his race done. But either way, I'm sure we'll find out soon. But that looks like it's going to leave Jackson Suslin-Harlow with a little bit of a gap over Cooper Webster. But Webster, last time by, I think that was another new fastest lap of the race.
Yeah, he's absolutely mowing down Jackson, a real veteran of this car. So it'll be interesting once Cooper gets to him, and now he's in that sort of draft range at this track where it's that short one straight that's going to do you justice. So he'll get that 1 or 2 tenths, and I think he'll be able to claw in Jackson Susan-Harlow pretty damn quick.
Yeah, that's it. And as much as we mentioned that JSH is a veteran of this car, Cooper Webster actually races in the Hyundai XL series, I believe in Victoria. I could be wrong there, but either way, he's not unfamiliar with how to go fast in a front-wheel drive race car. So I think he'll be quite quick towards the end of this race. But looking back in the field, Postlethwaite versus Blake Neck seems to be heating up a little bit more over the last lap or two. Blake was about 4 tenths faster last lap by, and they come down to the double left. Blake very late under brakes, but this fight's going to be on as they get down to turn one.
Yeah, this is quite interesting because Glenn seemed to have quite good pace earlier on, and it's as I mentioned, he had that massive slide earlier on, so I'm wondering if he's now burnt up his tyres. They got a little bit scorched, and Blake Nick's been able to manage to reel him in after Josh Anderson got past him, so this should be all on for Donkey Kong.
Yeah, we've surpassed half race distance now, so I'm not sure. It's a little funny, I think, in terms of what these guys are doing with the pit stop. So I would have thought that you'd want to split this race 50-50 if it is a matter of you have to get tyres. I don't imagine they'll have to worry too much about fuel. But as we look back in the field, it looks like Jack Widders has had a bit of a moment coming down into Ravazza. I think he's dropped a couple positions there. We're going to cop a replay. Looks like he's copped a little bit of a serve under brakes from a couple of guys, actually. And that's cost him a few spots.
Yeah, Jake Widdis got the door, and he's fallen all the way back 3 spots back with the with the and with the.
Looks like there's been another crash, Sanford, even further up the track as we continue this replay on. There's been some straight line contact.
It's been a big shot.
That's a
Yeah,
big
sorry,
accident.
I had a bit of company. I had to say shoo, but that's right. We're all.
As we head back live now, we're taking a look at Blake Neck. He's once again sort of right up underneath Glenn Postlethwaite. Wasn't able to do much last lap by on the main straight, but if he can get a bit of a better run, he's definitely quicker in the corners than Posy, but he doesn't seem to be able to get quite the exits that Posy can get. I also think Posy isn't quite far enough out of Joshua Anderson's draft range for him to not have any draft, which is really sucks. People talk about the double draft. I think it's one of the worst things to have to deal with when you're trying to pass someone. We've also seen Jack Widders is off again.
Yeah, he's taken a little bit of a shunt, as we were speaking about Blake Neck, as we see here on the Just Send It replay. What's he done here? Oh, he's just been looped around by his fellow racer. Who was that? I can't even see, but that's right. What did we have? And he's just had to rejoin on the track. It was Lachlan Manif that gave him a bit of a quarter panel touch, as you can see on screen here.
Yeah, that's a straight up dive bomb. We do like to see Just Sending It in the Just Send It series, but there needs to be some control.
I'd just like to mention Dane Warren's still in the pits. He's a lap down. So I don't know.
So that's what I said. What I actually think's happened is I mentioned the lap before he came into the pits that his lap didn't count, but you would have noticed that he didn't actually lose any lap time. So I think he's perhaps got a slowdown and not bothered to clear it, and then got a black flag. So I think that's going to be Dane Warren well and truly done from this race. But we just missed it off screen there. But Glenn Postlethwaite had a huge moment into Tosa and has given that position up to Blake Neck.
Yeah, so again, Glenn Posey just burning up his tyres a little bit more and more and more. And if I don't know what people are doing in the pits, but unless people need a pit, he's going to be in trouble later in the race, especially if there's a yellow flag with the likes of Ethan Warren now. He's moved into 6th, and as I said, he's passed Andrew Collins and pulled about a second on him. So this battle up the front's really heating up, though. Jackson Susan-Harlow is only 0.4 ahead of Cooper Webster. Cooper Webster's managed to slowly chip away for the last 10 minutes at that 1.5 second lead, and he's brought it right back as he comes almost sideways into the second to last corner, and they round off the final corner. And what's his exit like? He's gone apex hunting. He'll be on Instagram.
Yeah, that's. I was just about to mention how consistent Cooper's been the last couple of laps. That mistake's really going to burn him. We do still have 16 minutes left in this race, so it's far from over for Cooper. But that one's going to hurt him when there's only sort of tenths of a second you can make every lap. He's just caught the grass on the entry, had a bit of a half slide and caught it quite nicely, but now he's got to redo all that work that he spent the last 5 laps doing.
Yeah, that's quite interesting because Cooper was actually only a few seconds off. About 0.6 or 0.4 even off the pace of Jackson that lap. So given that he didn't push wide on that second to last corner, mate, that was a blistering lap from Cooper. But as we look back through the field, Job Stewart's now, he's battling along with Jacob Knight in the field. So Job Stewart's he's a bit of a newcomer to sim racing this year, and he's done really well on things like V8 Scops and all that. So, and him and Jacob Knight have done a Fairview V8 racing together, the Exto gaming motorsports car and AUSC and things like that. So these guys will be pretty familiar with each other, Jake.
Yeah, that's it. And it looks like we've lost Ethan Warren as well, which is a bit of a shame. A hard night in the office for the Warren boys. Ethan had done so well to get himself up to where he was, and he's just disconnected by the looks of it. So perhaps a rage quit from Eth, or maybe even just a computer failure of some description. But that's going to promote Andrew Collins up to P7. We're having a bit of a replay now of what we saw down into turn 1 with Nick De Silva and Lachlan Manif. Big move from Lachlan Manif that he's actually managed to pull up. Again, that Nick De Silva livery, I think, certainly is in contention for livery of the night.
Yeah, as we like to, Big Donkey on the big donkey under the hood I think that represents Jake. I'm not too sure, but Lachlan Manif has obviously been watching some Summer Nats over the weekend. He came right in on the rears, big tip in, so that was pretty cool. As we move back to Jacob Knight and Job Stewart in this battle for 8th and 9th now, is because Ethan obviously pulled off and disconnected from the server, but Job Stewart's right on the gate of Jacob Knight.
That's it. And we should mention now, if you're liking the awesome racing that you're seeing here at Just Send It, these guys are running most Tuesdays in this series, and anyone is welcome to take part. It's a bit of a random combination each week. You get a bit of variety, especially if you're new to iRacing, and some awesome series sponsors. As we said, there's a viewer's prize on offer tonight. Anyone who likes and shares the broadcast gets in the running rather for a 2-hour sim session down at the awesome rigs at Motum Simulation in Melbourne, Sydney, or Auckland. I've been fortunate enough to have a run in those sims before in the VSR Showdown here on SimSpeed TV, and they are an awesome bit of kit.
Oh, that was a great, as you said that, Job Stewart's just come up the inside of Jacob Knight to take away that position 8, and Cooper Webster's pulled back that gap up at the front of the race to back to point 3. Now I just went for, as you were saying that, I just wandered down to pit lane full Crompo style and talked to Ethan and Dane as to what actually happened there. So those boys both got drive-throughs, so they pretty much just retired from the race knowing that their race was finished.
Right, okay, so a bit of a weird one there from the Warren boys, but it is a shame to see them out of it. It is a little bit boring up the front at the moment, unfortunately. We've had Jackson and Cooper. I think those two are just playing it smart for the next 10 minutes, and then we'll start to see them fight. Then we've got Ando in a bit of a void, but then we've got a couple cool battles. The first one is between Blake Neck and Glenn Postlethwaite, who are actually amongst a bit of lapped traffic at the moment, and this is not ideal for either of those boys, but they've managed to clear it up. And again, that battle with Job Stewart and Cooper Webster, Job Stewart and Jacob Knight as well.
Yeah, that's right. And as we mentioned before, right at the start of the race, with such a big field, lots of lap traffic, so these lead car drivers do have to be almost smart. You know, sometimes when you race in those big leagues where lap traffic and enduros and stuff does become a problem, it's always, you know, sometimes it's better to just hang back and go for an awesome exit rather than sending it on someone and potentially getting stuck. Having the guy behind you come flying past, this is just send it. Of course he's going to send it.
Yeah, and that's what we like to see on the broadcast as well. Posy is looking ever more dangerous here for Blake Neck for this position. He might want to have a bit of a dip into Tosa if he can get a bit of a nice exit here off Villeneuve, but he's actually clipped the curb quite aggressively and it's hopped around, which has hurt his exit.
Yeah, that's right. And these cars, obviously, people are anyone that's driven the Audi R8 LMS. That car is really stiff, so it doesn't like curbs. It likes to hop around. These cars are almost identical. For some reason, it's just the way, you know, Audi race cars maybe, and especially with the way it replicates it on the game. As soon as you hit a curb, it just bounces around and it hops across the circuit, as opposed to maybe a car with a bit of a softer spring that can just sort of sack it and just hit the ground and squat.
Yeah, that's it. I think being front-wheel drive as well, these guys have to get steer out of the car somehow. So these cars are set up to be extremely stiff in the rear end to make them turn, very similar to your British touring car style cars as well. But it looks like I see some smoke down at the chicane. We might have seen something weird going on there. We've got a slow car. Looks to be Jonathan Beekoff, I think. Oh, no, that's a fairly substantial shunt down at Piratella Corner. Perhaps a brake failure or something like that, or perhaps maybe some malice in that even.
Oh, it's definitely his dog just chewing the wires. You can see how he just doesn't even brake, and unfortunately his steering wheel. Yeah, okay.
I don't think that was a not brake. He's kept the right foot pinned on that thing, so I think he was maybe trying to line someone up there, but fortunately for the guy who was trying to line up, he's missed. As we take a look back up to the front, Cooper Webster will be trying to line up Jackson Susan Harlow as we've got about 10 minutes to go.
Yeah, there's only 10 minutes left, as you just said, Jake. Something that I like to mention that's really cool in that part of the track is the way that you sort of come in and you go shallow, and then you, on that right-hand turn, you use that little anti-cut to rotate the car rather, and it's quite cool the way it sits and squats, and you could see those leaders doing it to push the car along, especially this the front-wheel drive rather. Cooper's cut this lead down to just 0.3. As you can imagine, he's just sitting there waiting, biding his time, because you don't want to put it past Jackson too early in the race. Jackson's a young, competitive kind of guy. So is Cooper, but Jackson will absolutely send it straight back on you, and that's what probably Cooper's trying to avoid.
Should be mentioned as well, earlier this lap, we didn't quite catch it, but Glenn Postlethwaite has retaken P4 off Blake next, so this battle continuing as well. Must have been quite early in the lap he got it done. Yeah, then back to Andrew Collins in P6. So our sort of front five are quite isolated from the rest. I think the battle that we're going to want to watch for the rest of the race as we see the replay of this move that Postlethwaite made on Blake Neck. It looks like it was down in towards turn 1. He's done it the hard way all the way around the outside as they run side by side into the braking zone. Posy is around the outside and get it done into the next right hand. A nice move.
Yeah, although those guys touched, they obviously gave each other some driving room. The really scary thing about passing into that corner. Cooper Webster's come into the pits. I'm just going to cut that short. So our second place driver and Blake Neck has come into the pits. Now I'm interested to see what these guys do. Is it another Ethan B. Warren story? Is it another Dane story? Are they just going to park it? I'm not too sure. Is there actually a critical lap, Jack?
I don't think these guys are fuel limited. So I think maybe the rule is you've just got to pit at some point, unless maybe what I'm thinking potentially is the guys that just send it have perhaps thought these guys have a little bit much of a lead and have just decided to give them a little bit of parity adjustment.
Yeah, well, Blake Neck seems to be off and moving again after his pit stop, so maybe they just need to take a stop. Maybe Blake just got a 15-second hold, something like that, from abusing those anti-cuts too much. Get a bit of a slowdown, and then you get a penalty if you don't serve it in time. So it'll be interesting to see what the leaders do, like Jackson Susan-Hallo, Josh Anderson, and Glenn Posey. None of them have pitted yet. Brenton Hobson, everything like that. So luckily enough, Cooper Webster and Job Stewart haven't fired down the field too hard, and they shouldn't get held up too much if they're going to keep those race hopes alive.
I don't think it was the parity adjustment, quote unquote, as I just mentioned, because we've seen pretty much the whole field from about 15th back. Looks like they've wanted to pit as well, as we now see Jacob Knight trying to have a crack on Job Stewart. These guys have been pretty much inseparable the last 6 or 7 laps. Knight not really able to do much just at this point of the track anyway. But yeah, I think these guys will have to make a CPS. So we mentioned how cold tyres, although I don't think these guys are getting new tyres. They're going to cycle to be a bit colder. It may hurt Cooper Webster a little bit having pitted early than JSH.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So it'll be interesting to see with that reduced speed down the pit lane, Cooper might have lost a bit of temp out of his tyres. So now I'd like to see what happens. I'm pretty sure everyone has to come down. Yeah, there we go. Joshua Anderson for Altus Esports. Yeah. He's come down the lane, everything like that. So it's probably a CPS, Jake.
So we've had the sim speed spy guy get into our ear and just let us know that we do in fact need a CPS for fuel to get home, about 2 laps worth of fuel, so an extremely short stop. I'm curious to know if JSH is going to come down to the lane this time. I'm curious to know what Cooper Webster is looking like at the moment. He's got clear racetrack, which is exactly what he wants, but he does have a couple slower cars coming up in the next lap, but I don't think it's going to bother him before then.
Speaking of just send it, it'll be interesting to see how hard Jackson sends it into the pits. The man who loves to send it. So, we got Jackson Susan-Hallo, Posey, Brenton Hobson, all of our top 3, but none of those guys have pitted yet. Absolutely none of them. So, seeing those guys earlier on pit, was it a good thing? Was it a bad thing? It'll be interesting to see later on in the race. But with these warmer tires, I'm not too played up on TCR. Are they better on lighter tanks, everything? I'm not too sure.
I would assume that the lighter the car gets, the faster you'll go, but it all depends on the tyre wear as well. There's not a huge amount of strategy in this because there's no tyres, so there's no undercut or overcut. We're seeing Mitchell McLeod make a move down into turn 1 as well, a guy we haven't spoken about a huge amount in this race. But JSH is now rounding the last corner. We've only got, sort of 5 minutes to go, and he's going to pop into the lane. He's driven it deep, but got it pulled up quite early, actually.
Yeah, he did that really well. It's quite interesting that the another series we like to have on iRacing is the Neo series on the weekend with TCR was here, and I was hoping to see some guys from like Prologue React Esport or some of the Euros from Altus Esports that. Or even Craig's setup shop that participated in that and just say, hey, I'm the best here, because that was a pretty awesome series with guys like Dominic Ferrari, so a young man from Canberra, but obviously, they might be too busy or a time zone implemented on them. So, well, Brenton Hobson still hasn't pitted. He's got 4 minutes left, so he's got
Cooper's right behind him too. This is going to be interesting with him and JSH.
Yeah, so JSH has come out of the pits now, but Cooper's got him, and it might have been, coming in that little bit earlier. Cooper might have had a little bit more pace. He's 2-second longer stop by Jackson Susan Harlow over Cooper under Cooper Webster, you could probably say. And Brenton Hobson still hasn't pitted, so you'd probably say Cooper Webster's got your provisional lead, Jake.
There's actually only 3.5 minutes to go. So I'm a little bit curious if maybe Brenton Hobson's on a bit of a fuel save here to maybe see if he can do this without pitting. I would have thought that if he needs 1 or 2 laps of fuel, he would have come into the lane by now. I'm really curious to see where Hobbo ends up as we've got a car off the road next to him, but that's made life really hard for JSH. 2 seconds is an hour basically with this little laps to go.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I don't think, unless something crazy happens with lap traffic or a massive mistake, which is highly unlikely from a really great sim racer like Cooper Webster, that he's going to be able to reel in that gap again. But it's interesting that Brenton Hobson has just absolutely fallen off pace. So I think you're right, Jake. I think Brenton was on 100% fuel save. He's got the orders from Roland Dane.
Yeah, that's it. -100 from Brenton Hobson. But JSH is going to have the run on him now as they head down into the last 2 corners of the track. Hobbo's going to have the inside line. It's very hard to go too wide through this little kink into this braking zone. But Hobbo, saving fuel, has let Jackson have it.
Yeah, so as we round around the what's the second or last time, I think there'll be 1 more lap to go this time by. I'm not sure. Usually we can see it come up. But Brenton Hobson still hasn't pitted. As we swap to Jacob Knight and Job Stewart, they're still going at it. This is a little bit like how we enjoy in Scots, Jake. You sort of get into that 1-2 punch guy and you just battle with him the entire race. Like, you literally cannot get away from this person, and that happens all the time. We fire back to Liam Caplice. I'd like to pronounce your name a little bit better if I got it wrong. Sorry, mate. But he has run out of fuel. So we can confirm, again, this is a non-fuel saving issue, and he's just parked it. It's on for the lead. Jackson Susan Harlow going right up the inside into turn 4, and there's a car off on the grass in the background. Thankfully, he's on the grass.
What's happened to Cooper there to result? Because he had a 1.5-second lead, and suddenly JSH is now right on him. So something's clearly happened between those two. I'm not sure if maybe Matt Charter perhaps was involved. I know they were passing him as a lapped car, but it is now right on for our lead. I think we're going to have another lap after this one, so it's far from...
Yeah, and as I said before, Jackson Susan Harlow, the name of the series, he will just send it. He's got this draft. He's going to probably, he's going to put it either, second to last turn or first turn next lap. As Cooper Webster comes in on the rears, goes apex hunting. No, he gets that quite nicely. Jackson Susan Harlow's right on this tail. He's pulled it into 0.5 after being 2 seconds behind after those pit stops. So this is going to be absolutely on.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Cooper's no slouch, though, and as much as Jackson does like to send it a lot, he's got one of the most used toe straps in the field. So hopefully he can keep it on the black stuff when he has his go at Cooper here. As I say, we're going to have 1 lap to go at the end of this lap, so we're coming to the white now.
Yeah, that's right, as they round around the final 2 corners. As I said, a really, really hard sector to do. And in most cars, Jake, you miss your braking marker by a metre and you can absolutely fire it into that second to last corner. So it'll be interesting to see how much of a draft he can get. But Jackson's going to be absolutely sending it this lap. He's going to want that P1. He's fought a race for it.
Tell you what, we talk a lot about fans of the stream. I think that's race over. I think we got it wrong. The guys have seemingly thrown it off the road. I'm a little stuck there. Because Jackson's pushing on like it's...
That's not the end of the race.
Still
I think
going.
I think
What's
Cooper's
happened
out
to
of fuel.
Cooper? Oh, so he's anticipated the race being a lap shorter. That's a real shame. We've just heard again from SimSpeed Spy Guy that Cooper's mum is actually watching on the stream. So shout out to Cooper's mum. And unfortunately, we've just seen your son run out of fuel there, which is not what you want. But JSH is seemingly going to take quite an easy victory now as we are on 1 lap to go. But speaking of fuel, I'm quite curious to see if Brenton Hobson's going to make it through the end of this lap. He still hasn't pitted and he's out. It's stopping. He's run out.
He should have taken the pit, mate. He should have taken the pit. He did an awesome job to stay out regardless. Hopefully he manages to come across the line somewhere and he's absolutely cruising, Jake. I don't think he's out, but he's got a bit of a gap. You know, I think it might be on for P6.
Well, it would be fitting if Hobbo could manage to finish P6 there, but taking a look back up to the front, Jackson Suslan Harlow run a pretty good night tonight. Was in amongst a few battles, and he's had quite a lucky moment with Cooper there running out of fuel in the Altus Esports car. Here he comes, rounding the last corner. He is going to be, assuming he doesn't bin it in a straight line, he is likely going to be our race winner for week 5 of season 2 of Just Send It. The Altus Esports driver and SimSpeed Just Send It regular comes to the line to take the win for Altus Esports. Cooper Webster dropped out, so we are going to see a little bit of a battle to the line, but Josh Anderson as well in P2. So on Altus Esports 1-2.
Yeah, that's a really good win from Jackson. As I said, you know, he was tucking in behind Dane Warren for a very long time. Brenton Hobson, no, mate. You've gone to P7. It's all over. He's out of fuel. He's out of fuel. He's rolling to the line. He'll chuck the clutch in pretty soon just to make sure the transmission doesn't pull it up. And this is on once again. Job Stewart managing to just sneak in front of Jacob Knight. Jacob Knight, I don't think he's going to have enough puff unless he got a pretty good exit, which he did. He's coming up on the side, on the inside. Oh man, that was an awesome finish.
Tight at the line. Hobbo gets P7 by less of a tenth of a second over Job Stewart. Awesome racing. I think Battle of the Night probably has to go to Job Stewart and Jacob Knight. Those guys fought all race long.
Oh, Big Donkey with the hit and run. The Naked Clown also giving him a bit of a shunt. Bit of How's Your Father. He gets 2 spots in about... Christina Nasaric. Oh, Christina Nasaric, I've just seen a straight line on the my replay, but Christina Nasaric comes through in P16, Will Longmore and Big Donk in front of him.
Yeah, so I think that's most of the battles out of the way. I don't think we've got a huge amount of guys left in battle packs, but that was an awesome night of racing here at Just Send It. I got to say, Hobbo, that strategy, if that race had been 4 seconds shorter and that last lap was the last, or that second last lap was your last lap, that would have paid off a beauty for him. So a real shame.
Yeah, so as we can see on the results, our leader at the end of the race, Jackson Susan Harlow, comes away with P1. Josh Anderson in P2, 7 seconds behind. Blake Neck for Alpine Stars Geodesic Racing in P3. Glenn Posey, Andrew Collins, P4 and 5. Ben Snell. Hobbo 88 managing to limp to the line just in front of Job Stewart and Jacob Knight in 7th, 8th and 9th. And Mitch McLeod rounding out your top 10.
That's it. And over the page we go. P11 tonight was Michael Hammond, but I think one of the drivers of the night, we mentioned him earlier in the race, Guy Leach, P12 from 33rd on the grid. So big gains for Guy Leach tonight with Michael Rosenblatt in P13, Jay Hansen in P14 with Ashley Ruskin in 15th and Christina Nazarek. Those guys we watched racing towards the line in P16. Nick De Silva, contender for livery of the night in P17 with Will Longmore, Lachlan Beneath and Glenn Morris rounding out your top 20.
That's right. And over the page, we've got Jack Widdis in 21st, Tyson McAvoy in 22nd, Cooper Webster, unfortunately, with a bit of a miscalculation on fuel, Jake, in P23, a lap down. Oliver Shannon in P24, Arturo Baz in P25, Dwayne Priest, Ivan Vantigiato, I want to say, in P26 and 7, Shane Witt in 28, Harrison Dengate in 29th, and Liam Caplice in 30th.
That's it. And over one more page we go. I think these are the last of our lead lap or lap to go finishes. Simon Francis in P31, Paul Rogers in P32, with George Gutierrez, the 86 driver, in P33. Then we had Jonathan Bakeoff 2 laps down in P34 with Darren Whittington and Matt Charter 35th and 36th. Then we go to some of our more unfortunate guys who I don't think were still running at the end of this one. Jamie Craig in P37, Will Newell P38, Ben Crosslands in P39, and Anthony Contario in P40.
And some of the even more unfortunate guys in P41, Brenton West, Ethan B. Warren quit the race. Unfortunately, he had to park it after that massive stop and hold that he got for doing an off track in P42. Cody Mains Ruddy in P43, Lewis Bahagia in P44, Dane Warren in P45, Justin Rougier in P46. Nathan Hearn, we saw a battle early on with him where he got spun around a few times in P47. Justin Ford in P48. That's Duvishan Padiachi in P49. And our 86 driver P50 is Aaron Borg.
Yeah, and the even more unfortunate, I guess you could say, Nick Coulson, a Just Send It regular, didn't have the best night in the office in P51. Tyler Howard in P52. Sam Christensen rather in P53. Max Carter P54. Thomas McMillan, no surprises, down the field in P55. Dylan O'Keefe, our TCR Australia entrant, also not a good night in the office in P56, with Phil Munnelly and Jake Maloney running out your 58 car field tonight. So that was Just Send It for week 5, season 2. We're going to see if we can maybe have a look at that awesome finish at some point that we saw between Brenton Hobson, Jacob Knight, and Job Stewart. Brenton Hobson was almost completely out of fuel. I think he was completely out of fuel, just try to roll that thing to the line. And Job Stewart and Jacob Knight also had a crack battling each other. And I think those guys were actually all separated by about a tenth of a second.
Yeah, that's right. Brenton Hobson is a bit of a veteran of fuel saving. We can switch back to the 2018 Bathurst 1000, where he had to fuel save for pretty much about 30 laps. He was off the gas for 50 meters coming into the chase every time. So you wouldn't count him out. He's a master of fuel calculation, but unfortunately not today. He came away in P7. So hopefully we can get a replay up. But all in all, Jake, I think that was a pretty good race. It was a lot cleaner than other races, except for the massive T1 shunt. I mean, lap 1 straight 1 shunt.
Yeah, that's it. And as we said, for our viewers, we've got 2 awesome things to mention. One, if you are interested in racing in the Just Send It League, we are running pretty much every Tuesday. You don't need anything to be involved. You just need an iRacing subscription and the ability to buy the tracks and go racing, and you can be involved in this. So next week we're going racing at 8:15 Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time. Once again, the track will be announced on Monday on the Just Send It Facebook page. But we're taking a look at this this very slow motion replay here with Brenton Hobson heading towards the start-finish line at the end of that race.
Yeah, it kind of confused me when the replay started. Look how slow it is. I was like, wait, was he going really that slow? But yeah, as you can see, Jacob Knight had that bit of a run on Job Stewart. Jacob Knight would have pulled out on Job and just thought, here's 2 for 1. Pretty much. That's what I would have thought. I would have lobbed, but not today. So they're rolling to the line. Job Stewart. It's good that he actually gave him that space, but you can probably see that he's like, oh crap, there's Hobbo. Where the hell am I going to go? If I try and go on the inside, it'll just cause the biggest wreck in human history. So
Yeah, that's it. And as we are catching the end of this, we mentioned our viewer prize tonight. If you like and share this broadcast, you will go into the running for a 2-hour sim session at the awesome rigs at Motum Simulation, as I think we are just about finally going to get to the end of that race. We can see how tight it was between these three coming to the line. Awesome job by Brenton Hobson to hold on to P7, as we're just seeing it now. There wasn't much in it at all, as I say, about a tenth of a second. But I'd also like to mention once again our major sponsors for tonight's race. The Just Send It series is able to put on some pretty awesome prizes and broadcasts for the not only the guys racing it, but the guys watching it as well. And that's thanks to the awesome series sponsors in JAC's Technologies, Melbourne Performance Centre, SimWorks, Digital Marketing Tribe, and Erebus Motorsport. Yeah, pretty awesome night in the office tonight, Sanford.
Yeah, I had fun. Thanks heaps for coming along, and hopefully I make another appearance in some other SimSpeed broadcasts in the future. So obviously I need a little bit of practice. I need to tell my partner that, please don't come in. Maybe I can make a sign or something. She came in twice. I was like, oh mate, come on.
That's it, mate. Well, thank you very much to everyone. This has been SimSpeed TV. Jay Kennedy behind the director's chair with David Sanford and Jake Burton here in the commentary booth. We'll also be announcing the Just Send It top 10 driver who manages to get a ride in an R8 LMS sometime during the week as a result of being in the top 10 tonight. So check out that, and also check us out next week for week 6 of Just Send It. This has been SimSpeed TV. Thank you and have a good night.
Sometimes you just got to lick the stamp and send it.
I don't know what happened on there. I just plucked her in first, gave some gentle. Fuck yeah.
You are racing with other people. And if you no longer go for a car that exists, you're no longer a racing driver.
We go green for 40 minutes of racing around Monza.
Brilliant. Look at defense by Ethan Grigault, just getting so punchy.
And a brilliant getaway already from Josh Rogers.
2 pro drivers going at it here between Dylan O'Keefe and Nick Foster.
Stanaway's demoted to third. Webster wins week 9 here at Sebring through the final corner. That's a huge slide for Cooper Murray. He's just trying to barge their way through, and that's whoa. That's a merry-go-round for Nick Burkett. Campbell, Paolo Gaon, and Ferraris behind. Glenn Wood actually was flipped into the barriers. One of the most exciting pirouettes I've seen in quite some time. That's Van Gisbergen, and his day is done. Tell you what, if Calvin wins this race, I wouldn't be surprised. He's all 4 wheels off the racetrack. Wow, but he just saves it on the apex.
Contact almost made, side by side through the elevation change, and Scotty McLaughlin had the move done, but he got over the crest. And
what a send!
Dylan O'Keefe sends it up the inside, can't do anything with it.
Shane Van Gisbergen already on the attack.
It begins and sending has begun.
And it's going to be a drag race to the line. Tuesday night is rapidly becoming a night to lick the stamp. Send it.
Oh, I forgot I was helping commentate here. I was just sitting back in my jocks and